After 25 years of loyalty, dedication, and building relationships that made the company thrive, I was fired, just like that. No warning, no thank you, no recognition. They called it restructuring, but I knew what it really was. A cold, calculated move to cut costs. I was 58, the oldest in my department, and apparently too expensive to keep. But what they didn't realize was that by letting me go, they were about to lose everything. Little did they know, the clients they thought were loyal to the firm were actually loyal to me. It was a Tuesday morning, and I remember it vividly. I walked into the sleek conference room at Franklin and Associates, the one we used for high-stakes client meetings. The air smelled faintly of polished wood and stale coffee, familiar, comforting even. But this time, it wasn't a client sitting across from me. It was Dominic Hayes, the new managing partner. He'd only been with the firm for 8 months, but in that short time, he'd already made it clear he was here to shake things up. His suit was sharp, his hair slicked back, and his expression was a practiced mask of corporate regret, the kind you see in movies when someone's about to deliver bad news. Beside him sat Janice from HR, her hands folded tightly, her eyes fixed on the table like she was trying to disappear into it. "We've decided to restructure the client relations department, Ruth," Dominic said, his voice detached, almost robotic. "Today will be your last day." The words hung in the air like an unwelcome odor, thick and suffocating. I stared at him, my mind racing to catch up with what my ears had just heard. After 25 years of pouring my heart into this company, of building it from a scrappy little firm into an industry leader, I was being tossed aside. My hands rested on the cool table, steady, even as an earthquake rumbled inside me. "After 25 years?" I asked, my voice calm despite the chaos in my chest. "Business decisions aren't personal," he replied, sliding a manila folder across the polished surface. "HR has prepared a severance package, 2 months' salary and continuation of benefits through the end of the quarter." Janice nodded quickly, still avoiding my gaze. "The necessary downsizing affects several departments," she added, her words rushed. "This isn't a reflection on your performance." But wasn't it, though? At 58, I was the oldest employee in client relations. My salary reflected my experience that had helped transform Franklin and Associates from a modest outfit with 17 clients into one of Boston's premier legal consulting firms. I'd been there from the beginning, back when we occupied half a floor in a nondescript office building, when every new client felt like a victory. Now, they were calling me expendable. "Does Arthur know about this?" I asked, my thoughts turning to Arthur Franklin, the founding partner who had hired me all those years ago. He'd been my mentor, my champion, the one who saw potential in me when I was just a nervous 33-year-old with big dreams. Dominic's jaw tightened, a flicker of discomfort breaking through his polished facade. All partners were consulted on restructuring decisions, he said, but it was a dodge. Arthur had been in London for the past 3 weeks, negotiating our expansion into the European market. I knew he hadn't been part of this. "Best of luck in your future endeavors," Dominic concluded, flashing a smile that never reached his eyes. "Security will escort you to clear out your desk." Standard protocol. Standard protocol. I'd helped write that protocol 12 years ago, back when we were formalizing processes to protect the firm. Now it was being used to usher me out like some kind of liability. As I stood, the security guard, a young guy who looked as uncomfortable as I felt, hovered by the door. I walked to my desk in a daze, the hum of the office around me fading into a dull roar. Colleagues glanced my way, then quickly looked down, pretending to be busy. The silence was deafening. I packed methodically. Photos with clients at charity galas, their smiles frozen in time. Thank you notes from the Chambers family after we navigated their corporate restructuring. The crystal paperweight Arthur had given me on my 20th work anniversary, engraved with Ruth Pearson, foundation of FNA. Each item was a piece of my legacy, a testament to the relationships I'd built, the trust I'd earned. My phone buzzed on the desk. A text from Catherine Winters, CEO of Winters Healthcare, our biggest client. "Ruth, heard troubling rumors about changes at FNA. Our quarterly review is next week. Call me ASAP." I glanced up to see Dominic watching from his office, already on the phone, no doubt spinning some story to minimize the fallout. He didn't get it. None of them did. Client relationships weren't just data points in a spreadsheet. They were built on trust, consistency, personal connection, and in one swift move, they'd severed me from 25 years of those bonds. My name is Ruth Pearson. Until that Tuesday morning, I was the Senior Director of Client Relations at Franklin and Associates. I'd joined the firm in 1998 when we were a small team with big dreams. Arthur Franklin was 42 then, full of energy and ambition, determined to create a consulting firm where client satisfaction mattered more than billable hours. Numbers are the language of business, Ruth, he told me during my interview, his British accent crisp and warm. But relationships are its heart. Anyone can crunch numbers, not everyone can build trust. I took those words to heart. Over the years, while others chased promotions through flashy projects or backroom deals, I focused on becoming indispensable to our clients. I memorized their kids' names and college choices, little details that showed I cared. I knew which CEOs wanted nitty-gritty technical breakdowns and which preferred high-level overviews. I tracked their company milestones, leadership shifts, strategic pivots, so we could stay ahead of their needs, not just react to them. "You're the relationship architect," Arthur said at my 20th anniversary celebration, raising a glass in my honor. "You've built the foundation that supports everything we do." Back then, the firm grew steadily under Arthur's leadership. We were a family, united by a shared mission. But 2 years ago, things started to shift. We took on outside investors to fund expansion, and with them came new partners, Harvard MBAs with slick PowerPoints and a focus on efficiency over experience. Dominic Hayes was the worst of them. He arrived 8 months ago, all charisma and ruthless ambition, obsessed with maximum value extraction. Employee turnover spiked 40% under his watch. The unofficial motto went from clients first to something colder, more transactional. I saw the cracks forming. In executive meetings, I'd push back. "We're sacrificing long-term stability for short-term gains," I'd say, pointing to slipping retention rates. Dominic would smirk, leaning back in his chair. "The market's changing, Ruth. We need to adapt or die." Some of our legacy processes are frankly outdated. Legacy processes. That's what he called the relationships I'd spent decades nurturing. Over the past 6 months, I'd been slowly sidelined. Meeting invites stopped coming. Email threads left me out. Younger team members were assigned to my key accounts as secondary contacts without my input. Still, I thought my track record would shield me. I managed relationships with clients who accounted for over 60% of our revenue. Catherine Winters alone brought in $4 million a year and had insisted in her last contract renewal that I be her primary contact. How could they let me go? But last week, I'd overheard Dominic on the phone. "The restructuring gives us a chance to trim the legacy fat. Their retirement plans would cost us millions in the long run. Legacy fat. That's what I was to him, a liability on a balance sheet. I should have seen it coming, but after 25 years, I'd let myself believe loyalty still meant something. The humiliation of that security escort burned for days. 3 days later, I sat in my apartment, surrounded by job search tabs and unanswered texts from colleagues too awkward to reach out. My LinkedIn profile was buzzing. Nothing like a public firing to make you a hot topic. The landline rang, a relic I rarely used. I almost ignored it, but the number caught my eye. "Hello? Ruth, it's Arthur." His voice was tight, strained. "I just landed from London and heard the news. This wasn't authorized by me." Relief hit me first. He hadn't signed off on this. Then anger. How had it happened anyway? And betrayal. He hadn't protected me. "Well, it happened regardless," I said, keeping my tone even. Dominic said all partners were consulted. "I was deliberately sidelined," Arthur snapped, frustration crackling through the line. "They waited until I was overseas, tied up with EU regulations." The executive committee rammed it through on an emergency vote to juice the quarterly projections for the investors. 25 years, Arthur. I deserved better than a 10-minute meeting and a security escort." "You deserved much better," he agreed, his voice softening. "I want to make this right. What if I bring you back? We'll call it a misunderstanding, a communication error. It's not that simple, I cut in. Dominic made it clear I'm dispensable. Legacy fat, he called me. The silence on the line was heavy. Arthur knew what that meant. In this world, once leadership undermines you, your influence is dead. There's no real coming back. I'm sorry, Ruth, truly, he said finally. This company was built on the relationships you nurtured, and how are those relationships holding up now that I'm gone? Another pause. Dominic assigned your accounts to the junior partners. Melissa Bennett is handling Winter's health care. I let out a dry laugh. Catherine Winters had clashed with Melissa last year, calling her pushy and tone-deaf. Good luck with that, I said. After we hung up, my phone lit up with notifications. Clients were reaching out. Catherine, Douglas from Archer Pharmaceuticals, Belinda from Summit Financial, the whole West Ridge manufacturing team. I hadn't contacted them. I'd never stooped to trashing F&A, no matter how they'd treated me. But word travels fast in tight-knit industries. Clients talk, at conferences, on boards, over golf. They knew I was gone, and they weren't happy. The doorbell rang. A courier handed me an envelope. Inside was a letter from Catherine Goldstein, Boston's top headhunter, with a handwritten note. Heard what happened at F&A. Several firms would value your client portfolio. Dinner tomorrow? I set it down, picturing Dominic's smug face as he slid that severance folder toward me. I wasn't going to destroy Franklin and Associates. I didn't have to. They'd already set the stage for their own collapse. The next morning, my phone rang at 7:38 a.m. Catherine Winters didn't do small talk. Tell me you're not actually gone, she demanded. I'm afraid I am, I said, pouring coffee. Restructuring, they called it. Idiots, she snapped. I've worked with you for 12 years. Melissa Bennett emailed me yesterday introducing herself as my new relationship manager. That girl tried to explain my own business to me last year. I chose my words carefully. Franklin and Associates is making strategic changes. I'm sure they think it's best for their clients. Don't give me the corporate line, Ruth. We've known each other too long. She paused. Where are you going next? I haven't decided. Well, decide fast. Our contract's up in 60 days. I'd rather follow you. Professionalism told me to defend F&A, to assure her the firm's quality wouldn't slip. But I was done playing that game. I appreciate your trust, Catherine. I'll explore my options and let you know. By noon, 5 more major clients had called with the same sentiment. By dinner, it was 11. I hadn't reached out to any of them. I didn't need to. They were coming to me. Catherine Goldstein met me at a chic Back Bay restaurant. Her sharp eyes sized me up over her glasses. You're the talk of the industry, she said after ordering. Dominic Hayes made a catastrophic mistake. Maybe, I said, keeping it neutral. She laughed. Always diplomatic. It's why people love you. She slid a folder over. 3 firms want to meet you. 2 are crafting roles just to get you and your clients. I peeked at the salary figures and nearly choked. Almost double what I'd made at F&A. They're not just paying for your skills, Catherine said, reading my face. They're paying for your little black book. The irony stung. F&A had dumped me as too costly, and now I was worth twice as much to their rivals. Did Dominic ever factor that into his equations? The next day, Arthur called again, sounding rattled. I need to see you. Can you come to the office? Not appropriate, given the circumstances. Then lunch. The Harvest, 1 p.m. Please, Ruth, things are happening you should know about. Curiosity won. At 1 p.m. sharp, I found Arthur at the Harvest, looking like he hadn't slept in days. Thank you for coming, he said, relief in his voice. I've been trying to fix this, but Dominic's blocking me. He's sold the board on your firing as a modernization move. And the clients, I asked, how do they like this modernization? He winced. Not well. Catherine Winters demanded a meeting with the exec team. Douglas from Archer is exploring options. 3 smaller clients already gave notice. I sipped my water, letting him stew. Here's my plan, he said, leaning in. A new role, Chief Client Officer, reporting to me, bypassing Dominic. Better pay, more autonomy. It was tempting. Everything I'd have jumped at a week ago. Too tempting. I studied his face and saw fear behind the concern. What aren't you telling me, Arthur? He hesitated, then sighed. Dominic's plotting to force me into early retirement. He's building alliances with the new partners. If the client mess gets worse, he'll use it to oust me. So that was it. This wasn't about saving me. It was about saving himself. I was just a tool. I'm sorry, Arthur, but I've got meetings with other firms. You get it. Business isn't personal. His expression as I echoed Dominic's words was almost worth the pain. Almost. The next week, I met with all 3 firms Catherine recommended. Each pitch was the same: praise for my skills, subtle probes about my clients, and jaw-dropping offers. I leaned toward Blackwell Consulting, a mid-sized firm with echoes of the old F&A's values. They offered equity partnership, something F&A never had, despite my decades of impact. Meanwhile, F&A was imploding faster than I'd expected. Industry blogs buzzed with client unrest and leadership drama. My old assistant Thomas texted updates. Catherine stormed out of her exec meeting. Douglas canceled his review. Even loyal Westridge Manufacturing was shopping around. Then came a call that shifted everything. Ruth Pearson? I answered, reviewing Blackwell's offer. Miss Pearson, Jeffrey Hammond from the Boston Business Journal. I straightened. The BBJ was Boston's corporate gospel. I'm writing about leadership changes at Franklin and Associates and their client impact. Your name keeps coming up. Care to comment? Risky ground. My severance had a non-disparagement clause. I can't discuss F&A's internal affairs, I said cautiously. Fair enough, Hammond replied. What about 7 major clients terminating their contracts? Insiders link it to your exit. 7. I'd only talked to 15 and none had confirmed leaving. I can't speak to clients' choices, I said. Lots of factors play into those decisions. Of course, he typed audibly. One more. Any comment on the letter from 26 F&A clients demanding Arthur replace Dominic as managing partner? I nearly dropped the phone. I don't know anything about that. After hanging up, I sat stunned. 26 clients organized against Dominic. I hadn't done this. My phone buzzed. Thomas, emergency all hands tomorrow, partners flying in. Dominic's a wreck. An hour later, Arthur called. Did you orchestrate this client revolt? He demanded. I've done nothing, Arthur, not a single solicitation. Then explain this. He was frantic. 70% of our clients are threatening to leave. The board's panicking. Investors want answers I don't have. Maybe they care more about relationships than cost-cutting, I suggested. This isn't funny, Ruth. 25 years building this firm and it could collapse in 25. Hearing his desperation, after he'd let me down, felt darkly satisfying. What do you want, Arthur? Come back, he begged. Full equity partner, not just chief client officer. Help me fix this. Partner, what I'd earned years ago but never got. And Dominic? The board meets tonight. His fate's decided by morning. I glanced at Blackwell's offer. It was clean, lucrative, simple, but those client relationships were my life's work. I'll think about it, I said. Answer tomorrow. I didn't sleep. I paced, weighing options as the clock ticked. Returning to F&A meant facing colleagues who'd watched my exit in silence, navigating Dominic's fallout. Blamed on me, though I hadn't caused it. The firm's culture was rotten. One change wouldn't heal it. Blackwell offered a fresh slate. New team, new vibe, big rewards. I could take my clients and build anew. At 6 a.m., I chose. I called Catherine Goldstein. I'm going with Blackwell. Smart, she said. They'll be ecstatic. One more thing I need, I added, outlining my terms. She laughed. Ruthless, Ruth. I love it. I'll pitch it today. At 8:45 5 a.m., I walked into F&A for the first time since my firing. The receptionist gaped. Miss Pearson, the all-hands meeting? Yes, Arthur's expecting me. The conference room was packed, partners flown in, staff crammed along walls. Arthur stood up front with the board. Dominic was nowhere in sight. Silence fell as I entered. Arthur's relief was palpable. Thank you all for coming, he began. We're facing unprecedented client concerns after recent staffing decisions. His eyes met mine. I'm thrilled to announce Ruth Pearson is returning as full equity partner, heading our new client relations division. Murmurs rippled. Arthur silenced them. Also, the board has unanimously removed Dominic Hayes as managing partner, effective immediately. His approach clashed with our values and client focus. The room buzzed. Shock, relief, tension. Ruth, a few words? Arthur beckoned. Thomas flashed a thumbs up from the back. I stepped forward, facing a sea of eyes, some hopeful, some nervous. Thank you, Arthur. I appreciate the partnership offer. I started, but I need to clarify. I'm not returning to Franklin and Associates. Arthur froze. Board members exchanged panicked looks. Instead, I continued. I've accepted a partnership at Blackwell Consulting, which has just finalized acquiring a controlling stake in F&A from Horizon Capital. The room exploded. Gasps, shouts. Arthur looked gut-punched. The transition starts next week, I said as the noise died. Blackwell values the knowledge and relationships here. No mass layoffs or restructuring, unless efficiency demands it. Arthur stepped closer. Ruth, what have you done? Nothing, Arthur. Blackwell's wanted a Boston foothold for years. Horizon Capital, your majority shareholder, jumped at their offer amid client unrest. It's just business, nothing personal. His eyes widened with realization. He'd failed me, let loyalty die for profit. Now he faced his own irrelevance. The meeting dissolved into chaos as I left, head high. My phone pinged. Catherine Winters. Heard the news. Dinner to discuss Winters Healthcare's future with Blackwell Franklin. I smiled, stepping into the elevator. I hadn't chased revenge. Justice had come anyway. The next morning, the Boston Business Journal ran it. Consulting shakeup. Blackwell acquires Franklin and Associates after client exodus. It outlined how a senior exec's departure, mine, sparked a client rebellion, paving the way for the buyout. My name was a footnote. Ruth Pearson, ex-senior director, joins Blackwell to oversee F&A client integration. A dry summary of a massive shift. In 3 weeks, I'd gone from fired to holding the reins of the firm that cut me loose. Integration kicked off fast. From Blackwell's offices, I pored over org charts and client lists. Former F&A colleagues streamed in, some begging for job security, others claiming they'd always backed me over Dominic. Arthur asked to meet a week later. He looked broken. You planned this, he accused. No, Arthur. I just knew my worth when you didn't. Dominic was a symptom. You let the culture rot, chose growth over relationships, forgot your own principles. And now you run it all, he said bitter. Not run, influence. A distinction you once grasped. I slid him a paper. Blackwell offers you a 3-year advisory role, no management duties. It's generous. He stared at it, then me. If I say no? You leave with your payout. Up to you. 6 months later, Blackwell Franklin Consulting spanned 2 floors of a downtown tower. The merger went smoothly. I'd fought to keep most F&A staff knowing their worth. Dominic surfaced at a small firm, his name muddied by the collapse he'd caused. Arthur took the advisory gig. We kept it professional, but the scar of his betrayal lingered. In my corner office, I reviewed quarterly stats with quiet pride. Client retention hit 95% through the transition. The 3 who'd left came back. Revenues climbed 23% year over year. My assistant popped in. Ms. Winters is here for lunch. Catherine swept in, poised as ever. Congrats on the numbers. The industry's still raving about the smoothest takeover in years. I smiled. Not a takeover, a market correction. Whatever you call it, she chuckled, you proved what I've always known. In this business, relationships are the gold. The rest is just scaffolding. Over lunch, I reflected on the past 6 months. I hadn't hunted vengeance when F&A axed me. I didn't need to. They'd missed that their real value wasn't in systems or brands, but in the human ties I'd forged, ties that made clients feel seen, heard, valued. By cutting me loose without grasping that, they'd undone themselves, and in their fall, they'd lifted me to a place I'd earned over 25 years. Sometimes justice doesn't demand a fight. Sometimes it's about waiting, trusting your value, and letting the world catch up. If this story hit home, if you've ever been undervalued or cast aside after giving your all, I'd love to hear from you. Like this video, share it with someone who needs it, and subscribe for more tales of resilience and quiet triumph. Drop a comment below. Have you faced something like this? How did you rise? Let's talk.